Hi there, this is Princy. Welcome to Africa4Nuclear. To help us understand the relationship between people, energy, and economy, we are joined by a very good friend of mine. He's an energy analyst and a former investment banker, Tshepo Kgadima. Welcome to Africa4Nuclear, Tshepo. Good to have you here.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here, and hope that the discussion and the debates will enhance, I think, the state of energy in our continent.
Tshepo, in 2019, South Africa released what is called Integrated Resource Plan. Please help us understand what that document is all about.
Well, the Integrated Resource Plan is part of the energy policy. It is fundamental to energy policy for South Africa. The question is it appropriate, and will it be effective in helping us to achieve those energy goals? The simple answer is no. In fact, it is inappropriate, and it is inappropriate on several fronts. But I think the most important thing is that energy policy of any country is one of at least the 4 pillars in macroeconomic policy of any country, particularly not only a developing but even developed nations. In fact, energy is fundamental. Energy is as fundamental as the monetary policy of a country is, as fiscal policy of a country is, as well as the industrial policy of a country is. Because if you have got an energy policy as currently crafted in the IRP, the Integrated Resource Plan as we have it, we should not be surprised that we are not achieving the other goals, because the other pillars are not fully supported, or there's not that synergy that is required to ensure that the macroeconomic policy of a country can therefore help the country to be able to move forward at the extent that it should. So it is not appropriate in my view. And one of the things that have been, apart from the fact that the economy or the economic aspects have not been factored fully in the IRP, has been that it has been more about the style instead of what are the objectives that we want to achieve. What are our energy objectives? Our energy objectives are universal access to energy. And currently the IRP doesn't give us that, doesn't even answer that question of that, well, are we going to be able to achieve universal access at the least cost, in an environmentally friendlier manner, in a consistent manner? So if you look at it, will load shedding come to an end? I'm saying that load shedding will exacerbate as a direct result of the IRP currently as is crafted.
I'm interested to know who are the biggest consumers of electricity in South Africa, and how have they been affected by the load shedding?
Well, everybody's affected by load shedding. So if you look at, I mean, they're adversely affected in that, whether we are talking about a rural household, rural households before there was the ESCOM Conversion Act of 2001. Yeah, the ESCOM Conversion Act of 2001. They was by and large only the white population from the apartheid era had access to energy. So the ESCOM Conversion Act, one of the key objectives that it seeks to achieve, and has thankfully been achieved, was ensuring that you can have universal access. What do I mean by that? You can go to the rural areas at the outskirts, even at the edge of the border to our neighboring countries. You can go to Botswana, the village, the very first village, whether before you enter Botswana, you come into South Africa, is electrified. You get into Botswana, the village right at the edge of the border is not electrified. So that means we've achieved universal access. The question becomes, with that universal access, is there use, is there demand? The demand is there, but people are no longer able to rather access or have that energy, that electricity that is there. But everybody is. So if you are in a rural area, there is a demand for energy. Either you're going to use other biomass, for example, which is wood, or you're going to use coal, and sometimes it'll be bituminous coal. You do what is normally known in South Africa as mbawula, or you're going to use paraffin, or you're going to use electricity, or you're going to use liquid petroleum gas, LPG. In all of these energy sources, the most appropriate one would be electricity. And that electricity right now is not as accessible as was intended from the time that South Africa attained a democracy. And I think that is the key fundamental. Now, when you go into the industrial users, we're talking about mining. Let me give you an example. In 1985, South Africa employed over 750,000 people directly in mining. That figure today is less than 300,000 in 2021. So that shows you that we have shed a lot of jobs. But any mining operation, anybody would know, it is a energy-intensive industry, mining, particularly because of the nature of the mines that we have in South Africa, which are deep level. So the need for electricity is forever there. It should not surprise many people that the likes of BHP Billiton, when they did the Evergreen contract, which NERSA, for inexplicable reasons, approved, where effectively they are getting electricity at the lowest cost. In fact, they're getting electricity for less than the cost of production from Eskom for their aluminium smelter. Again, that question of having supplied electricity to this aluminium smelter was to answer the question of beneficiation, because beneficiation in terms of your industrial policy is fundamental. So hence I'm talking about the 4 pillars in terms of macroeconomic policy of a country. So if you look at the energy requirement by the smelters, a number of them have closed down. Now, sometimes, even though it might not be policy, there are erroneous but very costly decisions that get taken by some of the executives at Eskom, for example. So after following 2008, when really load shedding started, we saw them taking some of very bizarre decisions, saying to the ferrochrome smelters, ferromanganese smelters, saying, we will buy energy from you, so we will pay you for not turning your smelter or your furnace on. And that was catastrophic to the finances of Eskom. It was completely erroneous. But that was because we no longer have enough energy to go around. So depending on who you talk to, South Africa has got in the region of 50 to 54,000 megawatts capacity. But the demand at any point in time is no more than 33,000. So the question becomes, well, why would we then have load shedding if we have got such ample capacity? And I think that is the key question, that you say, well, if you look at the IRP, it speaks about these various technologies. And the majority of those technologies, which are in the renewable space, so-called, they actually account for zero in terms of dispatchable, deliverable kilowatt hour that can be used by a household. They account for zero. And I think this is a debate that I've had with many proponents of the renewable religion, in that for the country with the design of the grid that South Africa is, it is not feasible to introduce renewable because they are intermittent. It is therefore not feasible to introduce them onto the grid. If you are talking microgrids, yes, I would agree with you that there is a case to be made for microgrid. So if you look at all of this, this I think is maximum confusion within the industry, unfortunately, that comes at a great cost to the economy, because whether we're talking about smelters, they're farmers. So what we have seen in the last 10 years, we have seen a consistent decline in demand, either from the farmers, from the mining industry, from the manufacturing. Here in Gauteng, for example, if you go to the East Rand was the hub of heavy industries. We no longer have those heavy industries in the East Rand. That has come not only in terms of now lower demand for energy, but has come at a great cost to the jobs. We have lost jobs. I'm talking to you today, in the day statistics have just come out saying that our unemployment is somewhere in the order of 30+%. Now, a country such as ours, can it afford that? But when you ask, said, well, why do we have such high unemployment? We have such high unemployment because energy is inaccessible. Every labor-intensive industry is energy intensive. Whether you're talking about a call center, whether you're talking about, when we talk about 4IR today, you cannot run a data center with intermittent energy with load shedding. It's just impossible. So the labor intensive industries, whichever form, they are heavily dependent on energy, and unfortunately it's not available.
So Tshepo, what do you think is the best solution for Africa? How would we meet our energy demand without compromising our environment?
The energy policy of any country, for it to be effective, it has to be anchored on 3 pillars. The pillar is consistency in terms of availability. It cannot be intermittent, so it means you need base load. Secondly, it has to be the least cost. Thirdly, environmentally friendly.
Until next time, ciao.